Okay, in progress. Okay, so there's a good number of us here tonight. I'm just looking at how many there are. I can see we've got some of our, well, there's about 20 of us here tonight, which is glorious. I'm really pleased that you're all here. If you get disconnected, just come back in again and I'll let you straight back in. If you've got any problems at all, if you can't hear or see us, drop something in the chat. Alex is going to take us through a bit of a presentation tonight, for want of a, well, it is a presentation, the slides, so it is. I believe it is okay to share this with your young person. That's right, isn't it, Alex? We're happy for young people to
Yes,
watch along.
absolutely fine, yes.
Brilliant. Just be aware that when I'm excited, I sometimes swear like a trooper. So that's the warning that you'll get from me.
I move a lot. I'll kind of be looking like I'm on a boat, but I'm not.
And I will try my hardest not to, but even when I'm on my very best behavior, the occasional F-bomb sneaks in. Hurrah for being unmasked. Yeah, feel free to use the chat. What we'll do is Alex will take us through the presentation. There are questions and things that you can comment on as you wish as you go along. You can chat in there if you want. You can ask questions if you like. If things crop up and they're like points of clarity, I might interrupt Alex and ask them to clarify. Oh, person's just arrived. Hello. Okay. Yeah, I might ask Alex to clarify. But if not, if there are questions that crop up that you think I'd like to ask that, pop them in the chat and I'll keep an eye and we'll go back through them at the end. If there's too many, like as in not too many, there's no such thing as too many questions, but if there is a lot and Alex's brain is a bit fried, we'll do a Q&A. So don't worry, we will find a way to make sure all the questions get answered. Okay, glorious ones. I will hand over to Alex and I will let them take over.
Hello, everybody. How are we? Thumbs up or just a nice big smile, whatever works. I'm so happy that you've all been able to join me. I've been so excited about this. My ADHD has been pumping through me. I'm currently having to run about 10,000 miles on the spot. So it's absolutely amazing that you have been able to join me and Heidi today. I really, truly appreciate it for sure. We're going to get all knowledgeable and we're going to become super, super allies. So it's going to be fantastic. I just wanted to just share before we obviously go into the presentation, this is a safe space. I want everybody to feel like they can ask questions. No question is a silly question. So anything that you have to ask or anything that you want answering, please pop it in the chat and I'll do my very, very best to answer your questions either now or afterwards, because it's crucial that we're able to share this space and feel safe to be able to get these questions out there as best as we possibly can. So if everybody is okay with that, I will get going. Happy days, perfect. So I'm just going to share my screen. Is everybody able to see that? Yeah, we all good on that? Wicked, fantastic. Okay, so starting ourselves off with, obviously Heidi's covered a few things anyway, so just confidentiality. If we are talking about any young people or any vulnerable adults or anybody, let's just remain confidential. And anything that is discussed within this webinar that can be quite sensitive, just make sure that we're keeping it in this space. Respecting everyone's identities, so you know, making sure that we're giving people that space and allowing people to be seen for exactly who they are without judgment. Sharing the space, so obviously like I said, we're going to pop some questions in the chat, which, like I say, I will do my very best to answer at the end, but also if you do want to pop and raise your hand up, making sure that you're just allowing that person to have that space. There is a trigger warning that comes with this presentation. I'm going to be discussing, you know, my personal experiences, things that young people can potentially be going through, and mental health well-being as well. So just so we're all aware, if we get, I will kind of give you a bit of warning before we get to that section. So if you do want to kind of leave the room for a minute while I do it, or you just want to take yourself off or mute me, please feel free to do that. That's absolutely fine. And no question is a silly one. So any questions that you have, it is not silly. Please ask the question. Okay? Wicked. So I know that some of you might have met me, some of you might know me through social media, some of you might have met my fabulousness in person, but I just wanted to give you a bit of a scope on who I am. So my name is Alex Lynam. I am founder of Beyond the Binary, and Beyond the Binary is a training, consultancy and public speaking platform of mine where I speak with schools, companies, colleges, individuals and families around inclusion for LGBTQIA plus people. I've been doing this. I wasn't doing this actively as a company to start off with. I've been doing this for around about 2 years, and I thought, with all of my passion and my enjoyment, why do I not do this on a daily basis? So I pumped it into a company which is now Beyond the Binary. So that's what my company is. And me as an individual, I started doing musical theatre from a young age, which you can see from my flamboyantness. I loved to dance and sing, and I was invested in that for around about 10 years of my life. I got to meet some fabulous famous people, and I got to work with fabulous famous people, and I solely believe that this was going to be my career for the rest of my life. I went into high school with the same mindset, with this same drive to be on Broadway and be on the West End, be doing high kicks for days. And then I came to the point of, asking questions of who I was as a person, my identity, my sexuality, my gender. All of these questions came up along with puberty, along with all these hormones rushing through my body, and trying to establish who I was going to be in my adult life. Came to the pinnacle moment where I was like, I am a lesbian, and I wanted to shout from the rooftops and tell everybody that I'd found this part of me that I'd been struggling with. And unfortunately, it went down a really dark path, and I ended up being bullied by years that were higher than me. I ended up in quite some tricky situations of like verbal abuse, physical abuse, and it really had a knock-on effect to my mental well-being. There was no support network for me within school. I'd go to teachers, I'd tell them that, I've come out as being a lesbian, and I've told people about it, and people don't understand, like people don't see me the same anymore. Can you give me some advice? And they kind of looked at me like I'd talked a different language, and that kind of then led into my neurodivergent, where I was going through the process of being diagnosed with ADHD, and I was just labelled as being the naughty child. And no support was given at school. I was kind of just led down this path of, we'll just brush them under the carpet and we'll pretend that it's not existing. And as that kind of progressed within high school, it then went on to college, where I continued to go down the route of musical theatre, but I dropped out of college because of still struggling with my identity, still struggling with my mental well-being. And as I started to go through my young adult life, I started to go out and party. I was drinking a lot. I was taking drugs, which then unfortunately led me to being arrested. And I was arrested. I was sat in this cell. I was discharged on. I was let out on bail, and I was like, what am I doing with myself? I was involved in a toxic and an abusive relationship. I was like, what am I doing with myself? And then I appeared in front of a judge, and the judge looked at me whilst I was stood there in this box. I was crying my eyes out. I didn't really know what I was doing with myself. And this judge looked at me and just said, you are an absolutely amazing person, and you are going to go on to do great things, and you just need a bit of guidance. You just need a bit of support. And from that moment, I went and did a rehabilitation program. I became a meditation and breathwork practitioner. I worked a lot on my mindset of managing ADHD. And through that self-growth, through that expansion of my mind, I was then able to embrace my full identity of being non-binary, being pansexual and being non-binary. And it was the greatest thing I ever allowed my body and myself to embrace, and it set me free. I went traveling, I went and seeing places, I went and swam in the most absolutely beautiful seas. I met some amazing people. And that's where this has led me to bring my passion, my personal experiences and my growth to the forefront of being able to help young people and being able to help adults be a cycle breaker in their journeys and be able to be seen for who they are without fear of judgment and be unapologetically themselves. And you know, at the moment I'm delivering training. I'm in the process of setting up an absolutely fantastic opportunity for young people to engage in free workshops and projects where they can embrace themselves and they can feel safe and secure to be in those places. So that is me in a nutshell. I went I tried to go full circle without getting too deep. So yeah, so into the training. So the first thing that I want you can either write down, you can pop it in the chat. So first thing that I want is, as a parent or a caregiver, what matters to you the most? So that's the first thing that I want you to think about. So I want you to either make a note, pop it in the chat. What are the things that matter to you the most as a parent or a caregiver?
I'm going to read out some of the responses for you, Alex.
Yeah, go for it.
The happiness of my children, that my children are happy. The happiness of my young person. Happy, healthy kiddos.
Yeah.
My children's well-being and safety. Self-esteem.
Yeah.
You are allowed to say chocolate. That my child can keep themselves safe as
Crisp,
an adult.
chocolate, sweets.
Supporting my children to be themselves and to be happy. Making sure my child feels secure and safe. Cake.
Amazing.
Nice, Victoria. Thank you. I'm glad it's not just me. My kids' mental health.
Amazing.
Being true to themselves. Children being happy and safe and that they feel respected. So we've got the right people on this webinar tonight.
I think the main point is that we want our children to be happy no matter what. Yeah. We want them to feel safe to be in spaces. We want them to have a meaningful and fulfilled life. And the happiness is the key point to that, you know, self-happiness, self-discovery. So, you know, those are absolutely amazing answers. So we're going to start off with, this is what I call my terminology table. And I'm not going to read them out to you. I'm just going to kind of go through them step by step. But these terminologies are something that your young people or within your spaces, you might hear these words. And it's important that you are aware of these words as well when they're saying them, instead of going, oh, I'm not too sure what that means. Or if a young person comes to you and says, you know, I heard my friend being dead named today, and you kind of not knowing what that is. So these terminologies, this presentation will be shared with you as well, so you'll be able to access this table in your own time. So I'm just going to quickly buzz through each of the words, and then when you get the presentation, you can read them at your own pace. So you've got cisgender. So cisgender is an individual whose gender identity matches what they were assigned to at birth. So you've got cis female or you've got cis male. You've got coming out, so you might hear some of your young people or people in the community saying that they've come out as being lesbian or they've come out as being transgender. This is that where they're telling a group or people of their sexuality or their gender expression or their gender identity. You've got dead naming. So dead naming is predominantly, so it can be associated with everybody, but predominantly associated within the trans community. So if a trans or non-binary person has changed their name from their birth name, and then they are referred to as their birth name, that can be classed as being dead named. So a bit of light on me. So Alex is my name. However, I also have a dead name, so which a name that I do not use because I don't feel connected to that name. Alex has always been my name in myself and in my mind. So when people use my legal name, that would be classed as dead naming. You've got sex, so referring to the body, so assigned to at birth, or physical attributes of the body. Then you've got misgendering, so referring to someone by the incorrect pronouns or gender identity. So for example, with me, assuming that my gender is female or feminine, and being referred to as she or her. So that can be misgendering somebody. And then you've got transgender. So transgender is someone's gender that doesn't match what they were assigned to at birth. So if you've got transmasculine, so that is a female assigned to at birth, but inside, mentally, and within the body is more masculine, more male. Yeah, is everybody okay with that? I've just kind of skipped through them, but like I say, you'll be able to read them in your own time.
Feel free to ask for points of clarity in the chat if you need to around terminology. More than happy to take that while Alex is taking us through this, if that's helpful.
Yes, please do. Any questions that come up, no question is a silly one. So then we've got homophobia. So it's like the fear or the dislike of someone being homosexual. So that can be through physical violence. It can be through verbal remarks. It can be through, we'll bring social media into it, where people are, kind of trolling on social media and writing things on social media. You've got transphobia, which again is the same. So it's like a fear or a dislike towards the trans community or transgender people. Again, through social media, through physical abuse, through verbal. And trolling again. We've got non-binary. So non-binary is someone that does not identify as a male or female and identifies as being out of the gender binary. So I am non-binary. So in my soul and in my mind, I do not connect to male or female. I'm very neutral within my gender identity. I don't feel either masculine or feminine. I just feel very neutral, and I express that in the way that I dress, or the way that I talk, or the way that I hold myself, which leads me nice on to the next point, which is gender expression. So it's how we present ourselves in our gender. So we might present ourselves within a more masculine energy. We might present ourselves in a more feminine energy, or we might just be neutral. We might not present ourselves neither masculine nor feminine. Just to touch on very briefly, gender identity and gender expression are different things, which we'll touch on as we kind of go through the presentation. Transitioning. So transitioning can be where somebody is making a transition of their journey. So you've got like social transition, or you've got medical transition. So transitioning is predominantly, I say predominantly because it can be related to anybody, but predominantly within the trans and non-binary community, that might go through a social transition. So changing their name, changing the way that they dress, changing their hair, and then that's a social transition. A medical transition is obviously starting to go through a hormone therapy, starting to have medical procedures to fit to make their body fit their gender identity within themselves. And gender dysphoria, we'll touch on this a little bit more, but gender dysphoria is a discomfort or an uneased sensation within the body where it does not match or connect to our assigned gender at birth. It doesn't connect to our gender identity or to what we feel inside. So it's like a disconnection between both. Yeah, everybody okay with that? Wicked, lovely stuff.
Can you just take a quick question, because I'm trying to answer it in the chat, but I think it would be a good one for everyone. So Suzanne was asking, is using trans man or trans woman incorrect terminology? And it's not a hard and fast rule, is it? It's very,
no. I try and use like trans masc or trans feminine, because I think from a personal perspective, I don't like connecting. I don't like trying to be trying to fit a gender with or trans masc and trans feminine, trying to fit it within the cis binary, let's say. So I like to say trans masc or trans feminine, because even though they might be transgender, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to become cis male. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm trying to say it quite.
I mean, I think the easy workaround is you can take the lead from the person. So some people,
yeah,
like,
definitely.
they're saying that they're a trans man is part of their identity. It's something that's really important to them. They're really comfortable with it.
Yeah,
Equally, there are people who are trans who may be trans men, but they are not, they're what we call stealth. So they're living in their authentic gender, and not everyone knows that they are trans, because actually once you're kind of transitioned in whatever way you are, whether that's just a social transition or whatever that might be, we'll talk about that in a bit. You know, trans men are men and trans women are women. So but you can take the lead from the person if it's someone that you know. But it is really important in that situation that if you know that someone is trans and you're not sure if other people in the room know that they're trans, that you don't out them by referring to them as a trans man or a trans woman, because that can actually place them in danger.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get on to that as we go through. But that is the terminology table of there's a lot more words, but I think these are the words that will be most common within young people's language at the minute. That I think will be, it kind of fits this.
Let me do a couple of extra questions as well, Alex.
Yeah, go for it before we move on.
I've done a couple in the chat, but Helen says, if someone is gender fluid, are they also trans?
I will touch on that in a moment.
Okay, Brill.
Okay.
And would trans feminine be someone who is male at birth but feels right being feminine, or the other way around? So it's about, so a trans femme is someone who is transgender and now is living in their authentic gender as a woman. So the trans bit is like the bit the change that has been made compared to how they were assigned at birth, and the second part is how they are authentically. So if someone is a trans man, they were most likely assigned female at birth and they are correctly a man. And if they're a trans woman, they were most likely assigned female male at birth, and they are now living in their authentic gender as a woman. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go Heidi. High fives.
So is anyone who isn't cis therefore trans?
No,
not necessarily.
No, not necessarily. But as we carry on, we'll
touch on these bits.
Yeah. And if there's anything that comes up and you think, Alex, you're still not making sense, then you can say,
we're going to dig a bit more into non-binary stuff as well, aren't we? Which I think some of these questions might cover. So I'll come back to that step if we don't cover it. Right.
Okay, so question for you. Is there a difference between sexuality and gender? Put it in the chat, or nod, or put thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you remember that game?
Some yeses.
Do you remember that game?
We're allowed to
thumbs
say
up.
no.
Do you remember that game, Heidi? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And you put your head on the table and you had to put your thumbs up in the classroom. Anyway, answer the question.
I don't remember that game.
Yes, Joe, did you just nod? Yes.
Joe remembers it. Okay. Kim remembers it. Okay, it's just me then. I was
what we getting then?
My school life was a bit of a blur. I don't remember a lot from school. Sharon says they remember the game but not how to play it.
I used to squeeze your thumb, but I used to cheat and look at people's shoes because I didn't like the fact that I'd lose. You know, you used to guess the person that had squeezed your thumb. Anyway, carry on. We digress. So, is there a difference between sexuality and gender? What are we saying?
All people in the chat who are brave enough are saying yes. We can't assume that everybody thinks that. That's okay.
No, that's okay. That's all right. Okay, amazing. Yes, there is a difference between sexuality and gender. So our sexuality is the sense of attraction to another person. And when I say attraction, it doesn't just mean sexual attraction or physical attraction. It can be an emotional attraction to somebody. It can be a spiritual attraction to somebody. It can just be a romantic attraction. There doesn't have to be any physical or sexual attraction in there, you know? And someone's sexuality can range, you know, it can be fluid, it can be however. So with me personally, my attraction comes more from an emotional level. If I feel emotionally connected to somebody, if I feel like we are emotionally invested in each other, then a physical attraction then will build. Yeah. Or, you know, and it's not to say that any other person or any people who are watching this or in the world that their sexual attraction or the sexuality, sorry, has to be in a specific way. It doesn't at all. You could have very little sexual attraction to somebody, but you could feel physically attracted to somebody. You know, you could enjoy the comfort that they give, like a hug or a kiss, or just holding a hand, or simply just sitting under a duvet, cuddled up, eating loads of snacks. You know, it doesn't have to be in a specific way. It can just be however you feel within your body that your sexuality is. And then gender is a sense of self. So whilst we're going through this, gender has always been seen from a biological aspect. So you're either male or you are female, and there's no in between, or there's no fluidity within it. Gender is a sense of self, so a sense of self within the body and within the mind. Yeah, it's what you feel like your mind is. Okay, so when I'm going to just touch on the trans community, that if they are assigned to being female or male at birth, that doesn't mean that their gender is what you see face value. It's what they're experiencing within their body. Yeah, it's what they're experiencing within their mind. And it's important that we understand, the differences between these two, because if a young person in your life, or young people that you work with, or whoever is in your space and is talking about their sexuality, it's talking about their attraction. If they start to bring up conversations around their gender, then it's what's going on internally. It's not what they're seeing or feeling externally. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah.
I think that's a really common misconception, that all trans people are gay.
Yeah.
You know, that or that they're, you know, that they have a same-sex attraction based on their gender assigned at birth.
Yeah.
You know, there's this thing that, you know, the trans young person that I love, they were assigned female at birth, and they're trans masculine, so they present as male and they are male. And their attraction is to people who present generally in a masculine way.
Yeah.
They would identify as being pansexual.
Yeah.
So same as you are, you know, attracted to people regardless of their gender expression or their physical presentation. But people do assume that because they were assigned female at birth and are now or are now living in their authentic gender as male, that they would be attracted to people who present as female.
Yeah, and that's why it is, and I think more so when we're talking about our young people and that journey that they're going through, these two things are going to come up. They're going to come up in their mind, whether they verbalize it or whether they don't verbalize it. These are the things that are going to be pushing through their minds, you know. And I'm saying this on an estimate, between like the ages of 12 and 14. That's kind of where it starts to, you know, things start to come up. They start to explore relationships. They start to get more curious about sex, and they start to get more curious about the bodies and all of those sort of things. So it's important that as we go through this, that we are able to differentiate these two topics, if you want to call it, these two topics, because they're very, very, very different. And it can be expressed, both of these can be expressed in very, very different ways. Yeah. So just whilst we're on that, so just got a couple of the common sexuality expressions that might come up within the young people's language. So you've got straight, so attracted to the opposite sex, or within feminine or masculine energy, depending on what they identify as. So if they identify as being more masculine and they're attracted to feminine, so straight is attraction to the opposite. So lesbian, being attracted to femininity, being gay, attracted to masculinity, bisexuality, attracted to both masculine and feminine people. Pansexual, there's no limitation to the attraction. So it's very much based on an emotional connection. So with me, I'm pansexual. It's very much based on an emotional connection. It's not what their gender expression or what their sexuality is either. And asexual. So asexual, not having a sexual attraction to an individual. However, bear in mind with this can come on a bit of a spectrum. So I think that's a fluid way that depending on the individual, what they feel their sexual attraction or their sexual needs to another person might be. So it might be with somebody who is asexual, they want no sexual interaction. They're very happy with just holding hands and having hugs. They don't really want to kiss, or they don't want to have sex, or they don't want to kind of engage in any sort of intimacy. Or you might get another person who identifies as being asexual, but can embrace a hug and a kiss and an intimate cuddle, but can't really venture into intimacy. Yeah, does that make sense for everybody? Lovely stuff, fantastic. And then we've got gender identity. So obviously we've touched on non-binary. So somebody that does not identify as being male or female will identify out of the gender binary. Transgender, someone's gender that doesn't match what they were assigned to at birth. And then you've got asexual. So asexual, not having a gender or identifying with
agender.
Agender.
Yeah, you said asexual.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Agender. They may like describe themselves as being like genderless or like gender neutral. They don't identify as being anything within anything. They're just themselves. Yeah, they're just this beautiful soul, that whoever they are. Gender fluid, so a person who is gender fluid may feel like there's a mixture between the two traditional ways of being masculine or feminine, and it kind of depends on their energy during that day, or however they kind of see themselves within that space. And then cisgender is a person whose gender's identity is matches with their sex assigned to at birth. Yeah, has that covered some questions?
Yeah, it has. Can you just clarify a couple of things?
My face on fire.
If you know. And like, I know it is very different because different people kind of feel an affiliation with different identities. So agender and non-binary, how would you differentiate in terms of like, if we're thinking about, and it's hard because we're not thinking about very hard and fast definitions because it's different for everybody, and it is about how someone feels affiliated most. But if you were going to try and explain the difference between non-binary and agender, could you do that?
I'm gonna put it in my thought and the work that I've done and all that sort of stuff. With being so non-binary, so it's what I feel is the energy that I present, and it comes within my expression. So some days I feel more masculine, for example, and I will express my masculinity through my body language, through the language that I use, through the clothes that I wear, through maybe the company that I keep that day. And that's how I express my masculinity. And then some days I might feel more feminine. So I might embody more feminine energies. And, you know, this is me personally. This isn't for everyone. So like with my feminine energy, I might, you know, put a face mask on, or I might get a really big kick out at like shaving my legs and putting some moisturizer on my legs or whatever. Things like that. Like that's a balance between how my energy is and how my expression is. With agender, I just feel like people that identify as being agender is that they are just very neutral in themselves, and I think that there is kind of no expression to a level, even though there is an expression, because there's an expression in every gender. However, I feel like to a level they just kind of are just who they are. And it's just
they don't feel aligned to a particular expression or a particular gender identity. They feel,
and I think like their energy match and their expression, like their gender expression, is just maybe a very neutral way. It's just they feel like there is no masculine or feminine energy within them. It's just a very neutral energy.
I know we have got some parents in tonight, and if anyone has, anything to add to any of these from personal experience in terms of these different expressions, and you want to share in the chat, feel free to. We're not asking you to do anything you don't want to do, but if you're able to add to this and you want to, then please do. Can you touch on, is someone who is non-binary always trans, and how does that work in your experience?
No. I would see myself as being part of the trans community because of my transitioning, my social transitioning, which it will be leading into a medical transition. So I would see myself as being part of the trans community. However, I do not I don't feel within my identity that I want to become a male, or I want to become masculine through medical transition. However, the experiences that I have within my body, I feel very disconnected towards my chest, because it is, scientifically, biologically, it is I've got breasts, so I feel very disconnected to them. So that means that I will be going through a medical transition to have them removed, so I'll be having top surgery. However, there are some non-binary people that are just non-binary. They don't see themselves as being part of the trans community, which is absolutely fine. That's their expression. That's who they are. But I think it depends on how people feel within themselves. And it comes down to, when we're talking about these two things, sexuality and gender, it is about fluidity. And there is a lot more fluidity within society now. There is a lot more ways in which we feel more comfortable to express ourselves. Pardon me, there's a lot of ways that we can express ourselves now, and it's become a lot more acceptable to express ourselves in certain ways, and feel comfortable to do that, feel happy to do that, and feeling validated to do it. So it's a really good question though, because it's one that people say to me, like, trans, non-binary, I'm confused, where do you sit? And it's not that I sit anywhere. It's the fact that I put myself within the gender, the trans community, because of my social and medical transitioning.
Yeah,
that makes sense. But I still don't sit within. I don't sit within the male or female lines.
Yeah,
I'm very neutral to myself.
What we tend to do quite often is that when we're talking about issues around transness, we often forget about non-binary people, and so it's kind of generally accepted within the community that if you use the term trans and non-binary people, it's a bit of a catch-all, because quite often non-binary people can feel like they're left out of the conversations because they're non-binary, so they're not included when you're talking about being cisgendered, but maybe they're not included when people are generally thinking about transness. So that's how we tend to kind of like do a little bit of gathering in of our non-binary.
Like non-binary, not like non-binary folk have been around for thousands of years. It's just so much that it's coming to the forefront of conversation now, that it's not just cisgender and being transgender, that there are other expressions in between. And this is why we've shown up for ourselves today, to give ourselves this information.
Florence has added something that's really helpful. Thank you, Florence. So Florence says that their son, who was assigned female at birth, identifies as trans masculine now, but he did identify as non-binary when he was 13 for about a year. Then when he was identifying as non-binary, he described the difference between non-binary and agender as non-binary being the middle of male and female, and agender as being of no gender at all.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you very much. Perfect way to put it, to be honest. Really better than me, so
well done.
Big it up.
You get a gold star. There is a question for Teresa, and Teresa says, could you say that non-binary is more of an umbrella term with gender fluid, agender, etc. within that umbrella? Not necessarily, is it?
Some people, and the way that it is written on some places is non-binary is an umbrella term. And I think as somebody that identifies as being non-binary and working with, say, like gender fluid people and agendered people and the trans community, I would say that we have to step away from that umbrella, because then it's kind of, oh, right, okay, then so you identify as being gender fluid, so you're technically non-binary because you sit under that umbrella. And I think
it's just I mean, like the it's very hard, the way that we've all been socialized and the way we've all been educated is to think of gender as one of two things.
Yeah.
And like, I think a lot of us are starting to understand that that's not how gender works.
Yeah.
But there are many, many genders. But I think for me in the beginning, when people said non-binary, I was still thinking in binary terms.
Yeah.
And so it's not that it's a case of, oh, well, if they're not masculine or feminine, then they must be non-binary.
Yeah.
Like it's
I think that's as well, though. It's kind of and it's societal as well, just being able to say like one is this and one is that. And like sometimes like I'm like that with other things. I'm like, well, why is that not like that, and why is that like that? Sometimes it comes to like being neurodivergent, but to an extent it can be because we've just been, it's just been part of society for so long that this is this and that is that. Whereas now, because there is so many ways of being expressing yourself, and there's so many ways of identifying, that it's broadening our horizons, if you want to put it that way. It's broadening our minds to be able to say, whatever it is, and like that's okay.
Florence is saying different trans and non-binary people are happy with different umbrella terms and no one size fits all.
Yes.
And that's the key, isn't it? Like,
yes.
If you're not sure, then it's not a bad idea to ask, and you should definitely not assume.
Oh, for 100%.
Yeah.
Right. So we will move on.
Florence is delivering the next time we do this. Florence is doing this.
So just just leading quite nicely on there from what Florence is saying. These are examples, and there are many other forms of sexuality and gender identity. So these are just kind of a few that I feel would be most common within our circles, within the young people, within the in our community. So transitioning journeys. So we've kind of touched on this a little bit, and I think Florence has actually said in the comments, not one fits all. So yeah, I think do you want to come? Do you want to come and sit here? You could come here and just do this for me.
Do you know what Florence said though? That they've been educated by their son, and that's, I think, a really common experience, especially when you've got a gender non-conforming child.
Yeah, we love that. But it just goes to show though that these conversations are happening away from the home, away from wherever they're living. They are happening. And it's great that you guys, I'm just so excited. Anyway, so transitioning journey. So we touched on this a little bit. So we've got social transitioning and medical transitioning. I'm going to kind of buzz point through this because we have kind of touched on it a little bit. So social transitioning is can be for anybody, but predominantly within the trans and non-binary community or with people. So social transitioning is like informing family members of their decision to transition. So social transitioning, I can relate to me. So I've pretty much kind of boxed off all of these points, if you want to put a big green tick next to them. So I've informed my family of my decision to transition. So I have informed them of my wishes for medical transition. I've changed my pronouns, and I've changed my name to the name that I've wanted. Alex. Alex is my name, and Alex has always been my name since the age of being 14. And I'm 27 now, so 13 years that this has been my name, and I've now able to take that stance and say, this is my name, and everybody calls it me. And dressing or personalizing themselves the way that they feel that their expression is coming forward. So I used to have really short hair. I used to wear clothes that I didn't feel comfortable in, but I felt like it was the way that I had to dress. So being able to come come out and be able to say, you know, I'm non-binary. I've been able to put myself in clothes that I feel very comfortable with. I feel like it expresses who I am very well. And those are the steps of social transitioning that people can take. Bearing in mind as well.
Here. Sorry,
Oh,
just to
yeah,
interrupt, I just wanted to add something in that Joe said. So Joe said, the more I've given thought to it, the more I think we have very much associated identity with outward looks, but so much is about your own perception of self and how you feel in your identity. I know that sometimes people will say, well, my son says that he's trans, but he still wants to wear, you know, like girly clothes.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean that he isn't trans. It doesn't mean that he hasn't socially transitioned. That, you know, I've got a friend who is a trans masc who presents very femininely, but uses he him pronouns and uses a male name. So yeah, I think that's really key.
I think when 100%. And then obviously like that actually leads quite nicely like into the medical transition, because medical transition, like the points are on there. So we've got like hormone therapy, we've got removal of the genitals, we've got structure of the chest tissue, we've got removal of the chest tissue, all of these steps that are taken. And it's super important, like these bullet points are not a one fits all. So certain people that might go through social transition or medical transition, it could be completely different to what you have witnessed. So like what I've just said about my own transitioning is that I have gone through social transition. I've done those things that best suited me. Whereas you might find somebody or a young person or somebody within your space that they might just change their name and that be it, you know, because that's what they feel like they need to do for their social transition to feel more empowered in themselves.
Yeah.
But might not ever go through medical transition, but might identify as being transgender.
It doesn't make them any less trans.
It doesn't make them any, no, 100%, it doesn't make them any less trans, nor does it make me any less non-binary because I haven't gone through medical transition yet. It's having the awareness and the knowledge of what these steps can look like, but also being able to respect and be aware that this might not be the same for everybody. You know, you can look on social media, because obviously social media is a big thing at the minute, that when we look on social media and we see the same transition 3 or 4 times on TikTok, for example, you see it on TikTok and you scroll through it and you see the same and you think, right, so that's what it looks like. That's where we need to kind of reprogram our mind and go, you know, that's what that person's transition looks like, not what this person's transition looks like. And I think by having this information, we're able to know what it could potentially look like, but also be aware that it might not look like the same thing. Yeah, does that make sense for everybody? Is everybody okay? Has everybody got any questions? Yeah,
Laura's saying, I'm relating to this maybe when people make assumptions about ethnicity due to physical appearance, but actually the person might not identify with that at all, i.e. i.e. just because you look Asian doesn't mean that you identify with being Asian, like my husband.
I can't. I'm not an expert on the
it is a different conversation,
religious side of things, but I completely agree. I think you're definitely on the right lines with that, but I can't really touch on it a lot. But I see that, and I can see that is very, very similar for sure.
Joe's saying, I can only relate to our own experiences to Rory. Rory's their child. We don't have a label for other than Rory for him.
Joe, how old is Rory?
Rory's under 10. I don't know exactly how old Rory is.
He's 10 now. Yeah, he's just turned 10. Yeah.
He currently identifies as he, him, but he will move fluidly between expressing himself in a more masculine or more feminine way. He just shows up as him, however that looks that day. I don't think we've ever labeled it, but his expression of self and identity has always just been Rory.
Love it.
I love that.
I love that, and I think that is perfect. It's just, I think that's just awesome that we can do. We're going to kind of go into that conversation a bit further on, but yeah, just finishing up on this section, just being aware that it not one fits all, that everything can be other people can go through different journeys as what the next person can. So what is inclusive language and habit, and how can we adapt this? So just put a few pointers in there. So we've talked about like our terminologies, our transition, what it might look like, you know, our sexuality, our gender. So how can we put this into practice? How can we be adapting our language and our habits to include this better in our spaces? And when I think about it from like a family setting or a home setting or wherever these young people might be based, it's about making sure that we are bringing the language that I've shared with you today and bringing that to the forefront of our minds, and being mindful and being sensitive towards it. So I've just put a few pointers on here. So we've got like pronouns and names, so name change, development and pronoun use, and dead naming. So it's super important that if a young person is approaching you and saying, you know, this isn't my name, this is my name, and can you use these pronouns, that we're putting this into practice and we're saying, yeah, perfect, no problems, we'll start using it as of, you know, yesterday. And by putting that into your language and by bringing that into the home environment or the environment that you are with these young people, that you are giving them the validation of what they are putting in front of you, and you are allowing their thoughts to be respected, and you're allowing their expressions to be respected. But I also just want to touch on with that I understand that it can be difficult to put this into our language, and it can be difficult to be able to change it. But what I will say to you, what I will say to the people that are watching, is that it is okay to get it wrong. However, it's being aware of that and correcting ourselves and being consistent in continuing what that young person is wanting, because by doing that, we are just giving them that validation. We're giving them that space to feel like they are being seen. Yeah. So sensitivity to gender topics. So put in the comments, who remembers the blue and pink corners in school? No?
Yeah.
The blue and pink corner, the blue and pink jobs, maybe? Yeah. Oh, I've been given the blue and pink jobs a few times. You do a pink job, sod off.
Yeah.
I'll do a rainbow colored job. Yeah. So it's being sensitive to the gendered topics. So when I'm saying the blue and pink corner, so this is like can be based within schools, and how they can say, you know, this is the boys line and this is the girls line. Or, you know, boys go and stand over here and girls go and stand over there, for example. It's making sure that we're bringing that inclusivity in. So it might be you giving them, I don't know, a shape. So I'm going to give you a shape. So you're a square and you're a triangle. So the triangles come and stand over here, the squares go and stand over there. Or giving them an animal, so the lions go and stand over there, the penguins go and stand over there. It's being sensitive to what could potentially trigger like distress or being upset or dysphoria, and avoiding them. Obviously, one of the things I've put in there is toilets. A toilet is a big kind of conversation within the world at the moment, and how toilets kind of need to not be so gendered, or if they are being gendered, then there's another space for all genders to be able to use. It's being sensitive to that. Clothing. So again, where Heidi touched on it before, so it's like, I don't want to wear that girl dress, or I don't want to wear them boy trousers, or wear whatever it might be. It's being sensitive to that. So if they are expressing, you know, that they are questioning, or they're on this self-discovery journey, it's allowing them, if they're picking up, I don't know, if they're picking up a pair of combat shorts, or if they're picking up a pink lacy top, or whatever it might be, that we're just allowing that expression. We're giving that, we're allowing them to take up that space as what their expression is. inclusive intros and compliments. So this is something that I touch on all the time when I'm delivering to an audience. So instead of using ladies and gentlemen, you know, or boys and girls, it's using humans, people, individuals, child, sibling, individual, you know, soul. I think it was Joe actually that called me a beautiful soul the other day. And I was like, oh, yes, I love that. I love being called a beautiful soul. But it's just adapting those words and just taking that gendered language out, which then brings more inclusivity to our spaces. You know, one of the things when I'm speaking to groups of people, or if I'm addressing a staff team or whatever it might be, you know, there could be like 10 or 15 people within the room and I've met 2 of them. So I can't assume gender, or I can't assume their expressions from face value. I have to kind of take the group as a collective, you know, as a community of people.
I really like challenging myself to find interesting ways to refer to groups of people. Like,
I do. I'm
fellow
trying to find more
Earthlings
words.
is a favorite of mine.
Fellow Earthlings. Honestly, I love it.
Glorious humans.
Yeah.
Someone just said at work they call babies tiny humans, which I really like.
Tiny humans. I use that. I love that.
One thing you said earlier on that I just thought, that's, you know, the phrasing that you used, and I thought it was really key when you said that we make it our practice to use correct names and correct pronouns. And I thought, you know, it does take practice.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And you know, when my child first came out, we got it wrong all the time. Hardly ever misgender him now. Except if I'm really tired or if I'm drunk. But you know, it took a lot of practice. And what I would say to you is, if you are trying to do that for a trans or non-binary person who you love, or just anybody, do it in every situation. So not just around them, when other people, even when they're not there, that you use the correct pronouns and names for them. And and that is gently correcting people when they get it wrong. You know, my next door neighbor still misgenders my son, and every time they do it, I correct them. You know,
I think that just like, but and obviously when I've put in, I think I'm going to sneeze. No. So when I'm talking about like inclusive language and the habits as well, language is a form of habit. So the way that we use our language and the way that our language has developed over however many years we've been, you know, toddling about, that is a way that we have learned to communicate. You know, and I do other training around like inclusivity, and we talk about communication styles. So our communication styles come through all different ways. So very gestural, verbal, non-verbal, writing things down, you know, pictures, you know, letters or eye contact or body language, all of the ways that we communicate. You know, I'm very gestural, I'm very kind of animated. I very much like to, when I'm speaking to somebody face to face, I'm very eye contact driven. You know, I'm very wide-eyed and very kind of open body language. And those things that I have done have been created over time, you know, with the positions that I've held in other jobs, and when I'm very sociable and very people orientated. So I'm very much kind of open to give everybody a big hug. And that is the habit that I have built up. So when we're talking about inclusive language, also thinking about the habits of bringing more inclusivity to the forefront of ourselves, you know, and it's being consistent in so if you think about a habit, so for example, a habit, we get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, we go downstairs, we put the kettle on and we scroll through social media until the kettle boils. That's what we do every morning. So then when we go, you know what, I don't feel like getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning because that is frigging early, and especially when it's like dark outside and it's cold, sod that. So we think, oh, I'm going to get up about 8. Our body will naturally wake up at 6 o'clock because we've created that habit. So if you think about, like say, we think about our language, all we have to do is just change our language, change that habit of language.
One of the things that I didn't do before I had a trans person in my life, and I had trans people in my life before my son came out to me, which is probably why he felt able to come out to me, but was I switched my presumptive pronouning to they, them.
Yeah.
So unless someone tells me they're a he, her, or a she, him,
Yeah.
no. She, her,
Start
or
again.
he.
Go back.
Unless someone,
Roll
like,
it back.
I ask people what their pronouns are, but if I'm referring to people in the third person, I'll just say they.
Yeah.
And that took some doing, but that
Yeah.
also makes things a lot easier.
Oh
You're
yeah, for
much less
sure.
likely to misgender somebody.
Yeah, that's like with me and like with my parents, you know, like when I told my parents, you know, like my name is Alex and I'm using they them pronouns. At first they were like, you know, they were like looking at me like super confused, and I was like, what the hell does that mean? And they're like mumbling between each other. Whereas like now, because I've given them the knowledge, you know, like what we're all sharing tonight, that's so much better for it. Like, don't get me wrong, they do get it wrong, but I'm very forgiving that they get it wrong, and they also take accountability for getting it wrong, and they go, oh, da, 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 and they change it, and we just move on from it.
And I would say about one of the things that my son said about when people get it wrong is he doesn't find the misgendering as difficult as the way that they are after they've misgendered.
Yeah,
so
when they're like,
sometimes they'll be like, shit, sorry, and then just correct themselves and carry on.
yeah.
But it's when someone goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I find it so difficult, it's so tricky, I've known you as women for so long. Like, and he's like, well, that just made me feel like crap. Just say sorry, correct yourself, and then let's just move along.
Yeah, 100%.
Nobody,
I think it's just getting out of your own way sometimes, and just not being so, oh well, I've got it wrong, and oh my God, I'm such a bad person. And it's like just saying, you know what, right, I've taken accountability, that's cool, and just kind of moving forward from it. And it just leads quite nice. Like, these are the 4 things that I like always say around inclusive language and habit. It's like the consistency of doing it. So like what we say, we put it into our practice, we consistently do it. So if they're not in the room, we still carry on doing it. If we're speaking to friends, we can consistently do it. We're changing our habit of language. The discipline, you know, if a couple of times you go, oh, I've got it wrong, you know what, I'm just not going to bother anymore, then it's, you know, you're taking yourself out of being accountable for yourself and for that young person as well. So it's being disciplined in the language that you're using. Having awareness of how detriment this can be if you don't try and change this habit. It's having the awareness of why you are doing it, you know, why is this important for this young person? And again, being accountable. So being accountable for, if we make mistakes, it is okay. You know, I'm saying this with such love to all of you. Like, it is okay to get it wrong, because if we don't get things wrong, then we can't get things right. So if we get it wrong, then we just got right. Okay, got it wrong, and we just correct ourselves and we move on. You know, just getting out of our own way and just correcting ourselves and moving past it.
Yeah.
Because by using those 4 things there, we're able to change the way that we do things, and it doesn't. If we consistently do it, if we're disciplined, if we have the awareness and the accountability, it doesn't take long to bring this into practice, into our language.
Like Florence just said in the chat that when their child first came out to them, they practiced in their head, and I did. I walked around saying his name over and over and over again and reminding myself what his pronouns were. And he went from his the name that I gave him at birth to changing his name. Then he used they them pronouns. Then he changed to he him pronouns. Then he changed his name again. So,
my dad, when I said that,
you know, but
my dad, when I said that I was like, you know, Alex is my name, and the first thing he said was like, oh yeah, you wanted to be called Alex when you're 14. I said, yeah, I did, yeah, I did. That's correct. And then from that moment, when I said, you know, about Alex, he used he calls me Al, which I think is awesome, and he was using Al in every other word. So he'd be like, Al, what are you doing now, Al? Are you going to the shop? Are you, Al? Are you going to freak out, Al? And I was like, Dad, why are you saying Al repeatedly about 20 million times in probably a 10-word sentence? He's like, because I'm just getting used to it. And that was his way of getting used to it. And, you know, my he won't mind me mentioning it. They don't mention him all the time. Like, my dad really struggled with it, and it was a really tough time when my dad was like, I don't understand why you don't like this name and you have to have this name, and was very kind of confrontational about it, very defensive on it. And then when I explained it to him in a very gentle and loving way, you know, he kind of sat back on it for a bit, and then, you know, a couple of days later, it's Al this, Al that, Alex this, Alex that, Al this, every couple of minutes. I was like, I'm just getting sick of hearing my own name, because he just wanted to constantly use it. But that was his way of bringing it into practice. And even if you're doing that with your young people, I guarantee you that they will appreciate that more than being dead named, or will appreciate it more than you brush it under carpet and just completely bypassing it. You know, they might be, oh, you're just being really, really annoying. But you're like, well, I'm getting used to it. You know, I'm getting used to your name, your new pronouns, or whatever it might be. So yeah, just really stick to it and just keep going through it. One
of the things that my son said to me when we were going through this was, you know, when people were first, he rarely gets misgendered now, but when we first went through it, it happened a lot. And he said, you know, it really pisses me off when people say, this is so hard for me. And he was like, yeah, off. You've got no idea. Like, this is not hard for you.
Yeah. I think when we talk about this, like, I think what people assume that they need to do is understand.
Yeah.
They believe, I need to understand this. I need to understand it. But what we have to think about, and we have to be kind to ourselves, is that I might never understand this because I'm not experiencing it. However, what I do have now is I have the knowledge, I have the awareness, and I'm also able to give that respect and validation because I now have that knowledge of the things that you're experiencing or the journey that you are currently on. And it is okay to not understand. You know, don't drive yourself into this pit of like stress or sadness, because I don't want anybody in this space to feel that, but just know, like, you don't need to understand because you might never understand. But by giving yourself the information and by bringing yourself awareness, you are able to respect what they're going through and able to validate it for them, and that's all that matters.
I don't understand how cars work, but I drive a car every day. I don't understand how electricity works, but I put the light on. Do you know what I mean? Like, I trust that someone else knows better than I do.
I absolutely love you. I just like, we just oh yeah. Well, I'll tell everybody about the window story later. Just a whole other thing. But yeah, I'm saying this very much from a place of kindness and caring to you as people, to parents, caregivers, you know, people that work with young people. You know, don't drive yourself into a flaw of feeling like you have to understand, because you don't. Yeah, just know that you have this awareness and you have this to give them validation and that respect, and that's all that they need.
That touches, I think, what Bridget asked about. What do you do? Have you got any tips for people who, we might have to skip through some slides, but I want to address this. Have you got any tips for people who have people within their family that are really struggling to understand the changes, and that is giving them reluctance to embrace the things that the child or young person has asked them to embrace, whether that be
who asked that? Sorry,
Bridget.
Bridget,
it was further up in the chat.
No worries. What I will say, Bridget, is that you have shown up for yourself here today, and you have given yourself this knowledge, and I think for you to have this space now, and obviously be able to have this recording, this PowerPoint presentation for you to have, you know, I would embrace them to watch it. I would
feel free to share this. You can absolutely share this.
I would embrace this I would, you know, definitely allow them the space to watch this or read the presentation. At the bottom part of the presentation, there are some signposts and support websites that you can visit and things that you can watch and all that sort of stuff. So even encourage them to read that or watch this. That might give them a bit more space, but it's also knowing that they need time and patience to digest, to go, right, okay, this is what it is. because a self-discovery journey and a questioning self-discovery journey requires time and patience, and that is for the person that is going down it, because they're the priority in this matter, but it's also people around them as well. Yeah. So I encourage you to share this webinar, this presentation, and allow them to take it in their own stride to give them some more understanding and more awareness of it.
And also, you don't have to be like, the two things that I've learned during this is that it's definitely not on my child to educate other people.
Yeah.
Like, they do not owe anyone an education or labor. And if a person is refusing to do the work themselves, then they just don't get access to me. I'm just like, and I haven't had to cut anyone out. Well, no, I have, but not very, very close people to me, thankfully. But I know that sometimes people have to. And that is incredibly difficult and very, very sad. And ultimately, this is about your relationship with that child or young person. And if there are other adults who are not on the same page and are not willing to get on the same page, it is okay for you to step away from them in the interest of your well-being and your child's well-being.
100%. You don't owe them any labor, nor do you owe them any stress or frustration or whatever it might be. You know, you can only give them so much.
And there's plenty out there for people who want to go and educate themselves.
There's plenty out there. There's nothing as good as mine, obviously, Swish, but that's a whole of a different situation. So just moving on. So in this next section, over the next 2 or 3 slides, I think it is, just a trigger warning on it. We're just going to talk about mental well-being, and there's a few statistics and a few kind of hard-hitting information on there. So if you do want to step away from it, please feel free. Don't feel like you have to sit through this. And obviously, if you're recording, skip past it. If you're watching the recording, skip past it. So yeah, is everybody okay with that? Just give me a quick thumbs up if I can see everybody. I think everybody's with us. Lovely stuff. Fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so just moving on to the mental well-being. So we touched on gender dysphoria a bit earlier on. And gender dysphoria is a sense of uneasement or distress from the body that person has been birthed with, to the feelings that they feel inside or in their mind. So me personally, I have gender dysphoria, and I feel very dysphoric towards my chest. You know, I feel no connection to it. I feel like it shouldn't be on my body, and I want them gone, and I do everything that I possibly can to get rid of them. And one of the things that I do to ease this dysphoric feeling is I use a binder. And a binder, for people that don't know what a binder is, it is a piece of, it's almost like a vest that goes in replacement of a bra or a sports bra, and it compresses the chest to make it look flatter than what it would appear when wearing a bra. One thing that I will touch on with binding, if any young people in your life are binding, please make sure that they are doing it safely and are using the right I want to say equipment. They're using the right clothing. I'm going to just use it as clothing. They're using the right clothing to bind sensibly. And I'm saying this from a personal and a caring perspective as well, because when I was younger and I didn't know what was going on about feeling gender dysphoria, I binded using bandages and I cracked a rib. So it can be very, very crucial in its safety. So if you know any young people that are experiencing gender dysphoria, and obviously on here can give you a few pointers of what that might potentially feel like to somebody, make sure that they are using binders. There's a website on the signpost where you can purchase binders, and they're very safe to use, but also making sure that they're not sleeping in them. Then they're not wearing them consistently throughout of the day, and if they're going through the menstrual, making sure that they are not wearing them consistency if they're having the menstrual cycle as well, because that can cause damage to the chest. Okay, so gender dysphoria, so it's a disconnection, or it's a strong desire to get to remove like genitals or remove the breast tissue, strong feelings or reactions, like negative responses towards the gender that were assigned to at birth. So what you might experience with, say, younger people, so I'm saying young people like 10 and younger, they might just start to say, why are you calling me a girl? I'm a boy. Why are you calling me a girl? I'm a boy. Or why are you calling me a boy? I'm a girl. Why are you using this name and not using this name? You know, or it comes with, I'm not wearing them clothes, and it comes through, you know, like being upset, or what we might say, like they're having a bit of a tantrum, or, you know, they're showing behavioral challenges because of this dysphoric feeling of what they're being asked to do, or how they're being spoken to. A withdrawal from social, so from friends, from family, a decline in mental health, so depression or anxiety, or it could lead to suicidal thoughts. And you know, this is where we want to, the bottom one there, we want to be able to cap that. We don't want that to kind of go into decline. So we want to be able to look at strategies of how we can manage this beforehand. Binding being one of the strategies that we can put in place for these young people to help them manage their dysphoria. But equally, you know, if they are experiencing dysphoria and they're unaware of what it is, because that's what was happening with me. I've experienced dysphoria for 15-16 years, and I didn't know what it was, and that's what was causing me mental well-being decline, because I didn't know what it was. So it's always important that we're picking up on these signs of what it could potentially be, this, before we get into the declining and obviously the suicidal thoughts. But it can lead into anxiety, you know, isolation, not wanting to go out with friends, not wanting to leave the house in the clothes that they're wearing in, you know, again, feeling very kind of self-conscious about that, the way that they look, you know, very kind of like hunched over, very much kind of shy, or it might come across as they're being shy, but it's just like they're isolating themselves. Shame. So, you know, I felt a lot of shame in myself, because nobody could give me any information, nobody could give me any knowledge. So I felt like I was mentally ill, because of who I was, or who I am, sorry. And it made me feel a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. I started to feel guilt when I came out as being non-binary, because I felt like I'd let my parents down a little bit. And it, you know, it's the fear of rejection, the fear of being abused, the fear of being you know, discriminated against or judged for who they are. Difficulties regulating emotion. So they might be, you know, super chill, and then you ask them a question and you might get a fiery answer, and it might come across as aggression, might come across in sadness, you know, heightening levels of aggression, lowering of confidence and self-esteem, and using drugs or alcohol as a coping mechanism. That is something that I very much did in my early teen years. I went out and just kind of numbed myself with a lot of alcohol and a lot of drugs, because again, I didn't know what was kind of going on in my mind, feeling all of these kind of feelings and not being able to kind of put them into perspective. And just as well, like, obviously we are touching on mental well-being. No, I'm not a mental well-being expert. However, identity challenges come hand in hand with mental well-being. So if the young person is experiencing challenges within their self-discovery journey, or their gender identity journey, or the sexuality journey as well, these are the things that could be cropping up for them, because they are feeling not normal, or they're feeling not part of society, by being part of a different category of people. And I'm using this because I hate the terminologies that I've used, but I'm just using it for layman's terms. So even though, you know, we are touching on mental well-being, like, and again, I'm not a mental well-being expert, and if you do need crisis support, you know, please kind of reach out to me separately, and I can try and direct you to somebody that will be able to help. But I just wanted to kind of point out that if a young person is experiencing dysphoria, this is the mental health that could potentially be seen alongside of it. And I just want you to know that, like I say, gender challenges come hand in hand with mental well-being. Yeah. So just because they might be experiencing mental well-being, could it be a self-identity concern? Could it be that they are experiencing this journey and they don't have anybody to talk to? Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of give you a few of these statistics, and they've come from different various of sources, but the years range between 2017 to 2021. So I think two of these statistics were taken from last year. Okay, so we've got nearly half of the LGBTQ young people, so 45%, including 64% of trans young people, are bullied for being LGBT at school and at college. So 57% of non-binary young people are bullied for being LGBT. 48% of pupils have little to no positive messaging about LGBT at school in the last year. Almost 9 to 10 secondary school teachers, so 86%, and almost half of primary school teachers, 45%, say that pupils in their schools have experienced homophobic bullying. 2 in third, so 64% of the LGBT people have experienced anti-bullying violence or abuse, and these, so 9 in 10, so 92 have experienced verbal abuse. 3 in 10, 29% have experienced physical violence, and 2 in 10, so 17 have experienced sexual violence. So these statistics were taken. So if you think about 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 5 years. So if you look at them, they're quite heavy, hard-hitting statistics, and they're not low numbers. They're very, very high-based numbers. And this is down to a lack of awareness, a lack of knowledge, like fear of this community, because that's kind of what sometimes crops up. People are scared of this community for whatever reason. And I think by reading these statistics out to you, like every time that I read stuff like this, like my heart, I almost like crumbles my heart a little bit. Because my fear is that if we don't continue to do this, and like all of you fantastic people that have turned up today, that have given yourself this knowledge and this awareness, if we continue to do this, then we become cycle breakers, and we can bring these statistics down, because we are able to take all this knowledge and put it into the communities. Like there's like 30 people here tonight. 30 people in 30 different spaces, we can make some moves, we can make some changes in our spaces. And by making these changes, by bringing this language forward, by bringing this terminology forward, and not everything that I've given you, we can bring these statistics down. And that's what we want to do, because we don't want to see these increasing for our young people in our lives, and for other young people in our spaces. Yeah.
I wanted to say about that, about the mental well-being. I think that these are really scary statistics.
Yeah.
They're accurate.
Yeah.
But what I did want to say was, sometimes you'll get people in conversations that are saying things like, being trans is a mental disorder. That is not true.
No.
Gender dysphoria is a diagnosis that some trans people could be diagnosed with, but gender dysphoria is not transness. Gender dysphoria is the experience of feeling uncomfortable in your physical or gender expression, and that not matching to your authentic gender expression.
Yeah.
And the cure for gender dysphoria is being affirmed in your accurate gender expression or your accurate gender presentation.
Yeah, 100%.
So for my child, they had terrible mental health before they came out, and they do still experience dysphoria, particularly around their chest. And if they get misgendered, they get very dysphoric. And them transitioning socially, and they are on a hormone therapy as well, has been a massive shift for them away from dysphoria and actually into euphoria. We talk about gender euphoria.
Yes.
And when something happens and he's like, like somebody says, sorry, mate, in a shop, he's like, oh, all the euphoria. Do you know what I mean? Like,
you know what, like, just to kind of put it, like when somebody refers to me as being a sir or a he, I'm like, yes, go on. I'm like fooling the patriarchy. I'm like, woo, woo. I'm like smashing it all about everywhere. But like, it's a like euphoria is such a tremendous feeling to have when you are affirmed in who you are. And I completely agree. Like, just because somebody experienced gender dysphoria, it doesn't mean that they're trans. It just means that they're experiencing these feelings, these sensations. And it's just allowing them to make those changes and navigate that journey of coming into euphoria rather than feeling dysphoric.
And we do know that people who are not supported when they come out, that has significant impact on mental health. And being kind of like forced back into the closet, for want of a better word, is one of the biggest risks for trans and non-binary people in terms of their mental health. So people not being accepted in their gender identity is a bigger risk in terms of their mental health than having people affirmed. And sometimes, like, I get it all the time, people going on about, you know, oh, maybe it's just a phase. If it's a phase, it will pass. And if it's not, you will protect their mental health by affirming them.
100%.
You will do more damage by not affirming them or telling them.
And it's like, just as like if we don't nurture our journeys, our mental well-being can become subject, and that's for everybody. You know, like that. This is for the likes of everybody on this call tonight, not just for young people. It's like, you know, if we don't nurture our own journeys, like our own mental well-being becomes subject. And it's looking at our young people and going, what we started this conversation with is every single person or people that commented, or, you know, when you're sitting with yourself and thinking about it, all we want for our young people is happiness. And that's why we started this conversation with, what matters to you the most? And what matters to everybody here is their young person's happiness, you know, or the people that we work with, their happiness and their fulfillment and their joy and their acceleration through life. And by taking into accountability everything that we've spoken about tonight, we can make that happen. We can make that journey a lot more smoother for them. Because you could be the person where they go, you know what, I'm having a really rubbish time right now because I don't know what to do with this. And you can be the person we go, oh, right, okay, do you want to come and chat about it? And you might be the first person that they've said that to all day, and you are affirming them by saying, yeah, come and talk to me. You know, you're giving them that space to come and actually have a conversation. And that's the greatest thing that you can give that young person, that space to be able to talk to you. It's a beautiful space. And I can guarantee that you've all been able to hold that space for sure. So, question for you, can pop it in the chat, or you can just think about it yourselves, or write. What blocks and barriers do you feel? And when I say do you feel, they can be for yourself. What blocks and barriers do you feel are coming up for your young people? What blocks and barriers do you feel like society gives? I just kind of want to have a bit of reflection from the conversation that we've had this evening. And what do you feel from all the conversations? What kind of blocks or, you know, challenges or barriers or whatever word you want to use kind of come up within your community or your spaces for your young people? Just dead quick, 30 seconds, pop a couple of ideas and then see what we get.
Religion, from society, negative messages and social media and Twitter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, social media. Nice one.
Being misgendered all the time, says Flo. Society and acceptance outside of our family and friends, says Joe. Yeah.
Anything else? Is that it?
That's what's coming up at the minute.
Lovely stuff.
Mine, comments from people who are fearful.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, you know, those feelings that, you know, those barriers and those feelings that are coming up for you right now, what I want you to do is just think, how do you think the young people kind of experiencing that? You know, like you're able to kind of voice it and you become more resilient against it. And, you know, if you are a parent or a caregiver or, you know, you work with these young people, you know, over periods of time, we've developed this resilience and we get more resilient against things. And, you know, we become a little bit more harder against things because, you know, we've had battles, we've had struggles, we've had challenges. So we've become resilient, sorry. So when you're talking about your blocks and barriers, they're very true. So he's trying to kind of get out of our own way and go, what are our young people's barriers? What are they facing right now?
I think a lot of people, and it's in the comments as well, people fear for the future of their children and young people. Like I can relate to that. You know, I worry about what he might come up against, you know.
And
Sure.
And the young people that I work with, like I feel the same. And you know, I've got such a soft spot for working with young people because I just think they're just absolutely awesome. And you know, being able to have that fear, it's quite sad really that we have that fear. That fear kind of comes from us to think, Jesus, what's going to happen to this young person? You know, what's going to happen to this person in my life that I care so much about? What's going to happen to them? And I think the more we talk, you know, like I said, there's like 30 people in here, 30 different communities. We can get this out there and we can talk more about it and we can normalize these conversations and we can, you know, be able to validate our young people more. Then the more strength that they have, the more confidence they have, the more fulfillment, you know, they feel happy in themselves because the people around them that love them, see them for them. And then they can tackle, you know, they can take on the world if they're feeling like that. And that is crucially important, that we're able to give them that space. So super quick. So how do we navigate this together? We've spoken about a few bits through this. So I'm going to whiz through it as quickly as I can. So we've got respect and validation. If we kind of give respect and validation, we are winning. We are absolute winners. Yeah. And we do this through what we have come here today. We are gaining knowledge. Knowledge is power. We are gaining that knowledge for ourselves and for our young people to validate and to respect. Yeah, we are validating their story. Like I said, you might never understand. You might understand a little bit, but you might never understand. But by being here, we can respect and we can validate their journeys. Yeah, allowing them to explore their journeys. Yeah, allowing them that space. Giving them that space to talk about their journeys. Yeah, giving them that space to be able to experience different expressions, different forms of clothing, different forms of hairstyles, whatever it might be that they feel like they need to do to get that expression for themselves. You know, this one, getting out of our own way. Sometimes we struggle getting out of our own way because we, you know, these are our babies. These are our, you know, we've been handed these beautiful people and we want to hold them and want to keep them super safe. And we think by protecting them from this journey that we're keeping them safe, when in fact we're probably hurting them more. So we need to get out of our own way and just say, you know, I'm here to support their journey, but this is their own journey. This is their own bit of goodness that they've got. So we're going to go down this journey together. Yeah. So we just get out of our own way. Knowledge is power. I've repeatedly said that, and that's why it's in capital letters, because it's absolute power. Communication. Communicate with our young people. Yeah. Check in with them. Make sure that they're okay. If they need the support, even if you can say to them, I don't know where to find this support, but I'm going to find out for you. You need this support, no problems. I'm going to find out for you. But you're able to look at them and say, you know, everything's going to be okay because I'm here. I'm here to support you. I'm here to still love you. I'm here to give you lots of love and nourishment. But I don't know the answer right now, but I'm going to go and find out. I'm going to go and speak to somebody about it. I'm going to find out for you. Yeah. Stereotypes don't exist. So if they don't fit in a box that society believes that it should be in, doesn't make it less valid. Yeah. That's just their journey. That's just who they are. That's just who they are and what they want to do that day, or how they want to express themselves that day. Just because they don't fit in a box doesn't mean we don't like putting people in boxes, because there isn't enough room to dance, team. Yeah, we put people in boxes, we're all rigid and we're all miserable because we're all super uncomfortable. Where we get out of the box, we can do a jive, we can do a dance, we can shake our booties around a little bit. So questioning and self-discovery is a process, and it requires time and patience from both adults and both young people. Yeah, time and patience is what it takes. You might get to a point and you go, you know what, I'm still struggling with the pronouns, I'm still struggling with this, and I'm still struggling with that. Be kind to yourself, give yourself that time, give yourself that patience. Yeah, as long as we're validating who they are and respecting who they are, then, you know, you're doing a great job. You know, and I say that to you, you are all doing such a great job with your own people. So be proud of that, hold that, be strong with that. Yeah, but just give yourself that time and patience, and be bloody kind to yourself. Yeah, because it can be a difficult journey. It can be hard for you and for the young people. You know, like you are here today, I'm not just kind of going, you know, you need to learn how to do this. No, like I'm giving you guys validation as well, because you've done the first step and you've shown up here and we're having good chats. Yeah. So I'm gonna, obviously you're gonna get the presentation, but these are some of the signposts. I'm not gonna touch on this point. Have a read of them, click on them, have a read of the websites that are on there. So you've got Mind Out, LGBT Foundation, Stonewall, Mermaid UK, Rainbow Project, and Spectrum Outfitters. Please have a click on them, have a read at the information that's on there. There's plenty of information. The one thing that I will mention, the bottom one, Spectrum Outfitters, if you do have a young person that needs binders or needs any sort of wear around the trans community, please go to Spectrum Outfitters and have a look on there for anything that they can provide.
Spectrum are great because they provide guides on safe binding with all of their
And they've also got an up recycle, and they send
Yeah.
them to young people that can't afford to buy them because they are quite pricey. So if, you know, no judgment on my part, if you do need to get in touch with them around that, please reach out to them. They're super helpful. And just a few things that you can watch. Obviously I don't want to, if people, I struggle to read, I'd rather watch or listen to it. So there's just a few pointers on there that you can either listen to or watch. The Jonathan Van Ness, Bye Bye to the Binary, is awesome, by the way. Jonathan Van Ness, I just absolutely love them. I think they're fabulous. So yeah, there's just a few things for you guys to watch. Right.
You're amazing.
My mouth is so dry, it's ridiculous.
There are some questions which I'm going to let people stay if they want to hear, but if you want to leave, we will not be offended. I made a note of a couple. I'm going to make sure that we've addressed them. If your brain is mashed, Alex, and you want to stop, that's totally fine.
It's just my mouth. My mouth is so dry, it's ridiculous. Like I've drank like a full protein shake of water and it's still amazing. Dry.
I just want to say to everyone that joined us here tonight that I know that I'm not going to speak for Alex, but I know that I kind of speak for both of us when I say that you showing up for this tonight has been such an incredibly strong act of love for both of us. As a person that loves a trans person and as a non-binary person, we want to really thank you for giving this your time and energy and effort tonight, because 100%. It's people like you that are going to change things. And we do not underestimate how valuable your time is. And we are super grateful for you all for showing up. Like, you're the good ones, you're the fabulous humans, and we're very, very,
thank you so much. Like like I say, like you're 30 people in 30 different spaces. You know, we could reach like thousands of people. You know, and I'm not being dramatic. Like that is literally what can happen from one, that
ripple effect.
Yeah, from one webinar. And that's what we like. So thank you so much for joining us. If you want to jot down any of my socials, my email, my number, whatever, you can jot it down. If you do need any more information, please feel free to reach out to me. I will provide what I can provide, and if I can't provide it, I promise you, all right now, I will find the answer for you. So please feel free to just drop me a message or whatever you feel comfortable to do.
I don't know if you can see the chat, but people are thanking you, Alex, for your time and your effort.
It's just come up as like 90 plus messages.
Yeah. Okay. So Someone's asking about a combination of OCD and gender issues and any signposting. Yeah, get in my inbox and I'll do some signposting for you around that. Are we allowed or able to find a way to connect after this? That's a good point.
With me or
with each other, or like, I've been thinking I might set up a subgroup within my Facebook group for parents of
Do you want them, Joe?
Yeah. Let me have a think about that.
I'll give
Alex,
sorry, just Joe's
go on,
asking
go
me
on,
to talk some more. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, so Joe was just asking what like services I provide. So I provide like training programs. So I do different training programs. So this training program that I provided today was specifically tailored to all you guys. So it was made for you, for this fabulous audience. But I also provide other training programs. So specifically around the LGBTQIA+ community, I deliver inclusion programs to companies, which brings like the building block theory, which I created, which is around 5 steps to positive work culture. I speak about like legislation. I call it like life admin, because when people say legislation, like, oh my god, that sounds so boring. So I call it like life admin. We talk about mental well-being in there as well for within the workplace. I also provide consultancy, so I do family outreach and one-to-one consultancy for either adults or young people around identity, like self-discovery journeys. Like I mentioned before, I'm not a mental health specialist, nor am I a crisis specialist, but if you do need consultancy around those, I have a few contacts, so you can still always reach out to me and ask for those that information. And I also do public speaking, where I will attend events, conferences, and speak to an audience to talk about inclusion around the LGBTQIA+ community. So that's kind of what I do in all bits and bobs. I've got a few events that are coming up over the next, well, not so much over the next couple of months. Into the new year, I've got an event that's in January, which I'm so excited for. And then I've got another event that's in March, which I'm excited for, but super nervous and probably going to throw up all over the place, but it'd be great. So if you want to learn about any other stuff that I'm doing, like I say, please feel free to reach out to me. That would be awesome.
Amazing. Right, let me do a couple of the questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Please don't add more at this time, because our brains will shut down, but I want to do the ones that we missed.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Share your screen.
Yeah. If anybody else needs my details, just ask.
Someone was asking in the chat, and I can't remember exactly the context of it, but they were asking, and I wanted to speak to this, they were asking about the issues around the gendering within neurodivergence and diagnoses. So they were saying that, you know, historically we talk about ADHD being a female presentation and autism being a male presentation, and we talk about the different. For me personally, I find all of that conversation incredibly problematic because it's very tied to the binary, and we do
like
know that there's a stronger correlation for people who are neurodivergent with them having gender incongruence or them being gender questioning or gender non-conforming. So what I tend to do in those spaces is, rather than saying, oh, well, you know, female presentations of autism or female presentations of ADHD, is I talk about presentations for people who are socialized as female or are socialized as male, because actually it's not about the gender of the person. It's about the fact that we live in a patriarchal society that expects people who are female presenting to behave in a particular way and people who are male presenting to behave in a particular way, and because of that, that's why we miss on diagnoses. So for me personally, that's how I kind of have processed that stuff, because I get sick of being told, oh, it's because Theo was, you know, presenting the way that he was presented that he wasn't identified. It's not that, you know, there's definitely an issue of, you know, the way that he was read and the way that he was socialized, but also more than that, he is a heavy masker. And so regardless of what his gender was, he wouldn't have been identified because of the masking. And I think that is the thing that we miss. And when we get too tied into the conversation about gender, we miss the fact that actually the majority of our children, young people who are not identified, it's nothing to do with their gender or their gender expression. It's because they are heavily masked.
Yeah, 100%. Like when I was going through the process, like through high school and college, like with ADHD, and like I'm dyslexic, I'm dyscalculate, I'm dyspraxic, you know, I've got all the disses. And when I was going through the diagnostics of it, I was just seen as being like a really naughty kid. And then when I started to, I was going against school rules because he didn't want to get. I used to wear like this beanie hat, and it used to like come up to like my eyebrows, so you'd literally just see like my eyes, and it was just like I enjoyed the pressure like on my head and on my face. And the teachers were like, take it off. And I was like, no, I was like, and at this time it was like, no, like this is what I like to wear. Like I like to just wear it on my face. I need it on my face. And when I was I didn't want to wear like a specific fit of trousers, because I'm not wearing them trousers. And I went and wore another pair of trousers. I was being the defiant kid. I was being the naughty kid. And I ended up being like suspended for like 4 days because I just refused to take this hat off and refused to wear these trousers. But I've completely digressed off the topic. But my point being was when I was going through like diagnostic and all this sort of stuff, they would basically just kept saying, oh yeah, it's because like you can't do this, or because you're behaving in this way. It's got nothing to do with ADHD, or it's got nothing to do with that you can't read, or whatever it was. It was just because I was being naughty and whatnot. And then when I was kind of going through school, and obviously I was being bullied because of like I came out as being a lesbian, and I was dealing with a whole bunch of stuff then, and my aggression levels went up because I was always on the defensive, because I was ready for like either somebody to grab me, or I was ready for like somebody to like say something to me. It was like, why are you being so defiant? Why are you being so naughty? And it was like, I'm like literally trying to like fend my life off. So yeah, I get from that. I've completely digressed. Mine's starting.
All right, it was a good one. I enjoyed the ADHD tangenting.
Oh yes,
there's always.
So we've got time. We've got 10 minutes, or we've got however people want to stay. But the story about the window. So Heidi, before I was like, oh, I'm just kind of flicking through, making sure everything's in there that everybody needs. And then Heidi was like, oh, I just need to close. I need to close some windows. And I was like, I'm so warm, like I've had to open mine. And he just like,
no, Alex, on my computer, I've got too many tabs open.
So I was like, yeah, me too. It's like, oh yeah, man, funny. Might have been a need to be there a minute, but
double empathy. And even neurodivergent people, like it's the most neurodivergent conversation ever.
I know. We always just go off on tangents. It takes about 2 hours to get like a half an hour conversation out.
You and me call for a quick chat and we're on the phone for 3 hours.
Joy, that's something for you to look forward to.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna talk a load of crap at you for like 2 hours. You're like, no thanks.
I have no idea where the music is coming from. That happens to me all the time, Elle. Which device is playing music at me? Which window do I need to close? Yeah.
I do that just like in general. I'm like, where's that music?
Yeah.
And I'm like looking around and I'm like, oh, I'm playing the music. Or I'll be holding my phone and be like, where's my phone?
Someone said to me today
that friggin' there.
Yeah, someone said to me today that they don't. I put my torch on to look for my phone yesterday on my phone.
I love it. Oh, you'll never get tired.
They don't have like their child who's ADHD was saying that they have like always a song in their head, always the script of a book or a film or whatever, and like
Yeah.
about 50 different conversations and then like a million different thoughts. And they were like, I don't have anything. I just have what I'm doing. I was like, oh my God, that is weird. And they were like, it's not weird, that's normal. I'm like, no, in my world, that is really weird. You are weird.
See, if I feel like if I wasn't to wear my headphones through this whole session, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I'm here.
Yeah,
back in the room. I'm back with you. So we would have been here until like 11 o'clock at night.
I wanted to mention a couple of other things before we finish.
Yeah,
just
go
for
for it.
people
Yeah.
on the replay or for people here. Someone said something in the comments about what do you do when you've got a loud child or a young person or a child who is unfiltered and they say things that are inappropriate around trans or non-binary people. And I think the example they said was, why does that man look like a woman, or they look more like a woman than a man, or whatever.
Yeah.
Any tips around that? Like how
old are we talking?
Well, I think we're probably talking about either children who are unfiltered or very young
3.
children, or
oh right, okay.
You know, quite often you know, neurodivergent kids will just say whatever is in their head, you know. I mean, Christ, neurodivergent adults do that sometimes. So
yeah, sometimes I'll say something and I think, oh, okay, maybe
yeah.
not. But I think from that, obviously I don't know the young person or what their needs are or their communication, whatever it might be. From that perspective, I would say start educating it a little bit, you know, try and just integrate it. So if they're saying, I don't know, like why does that woman look like a man, or whatever it might be, it's, you know, it's just explaining lightly, you know, it doesn't matter how somebody looks, you know, they're just being them, they're just being human, you know.
I think as well, we get tied up in that, don't we? We're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to say the wrong thing. And it's okay to just say, oh, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just kind of introducing language. Like there's a lot of books out there. So there's a bookstore called queerlit.co.uk. It's based in Manchester, however they do online purchases and stuff. So if you go in there, they're like an independent bookstore, and they've got the best books ever, and all for like under 5s as well. And it's all queer based literature, but it's tailored to younger people. Nice. And you know, some of their books, they donate their books to schools, like primary schools and high schools, for their library, so people can, like, obviously we've read them and use them and stuff. So if you ever need any like literacy for younger people, feel free to have a look on there. Yeah.
Someone was talking about religion and church, and that, you know, if they're in, not necessarily just church, but if they're in a community of people who have like that, they're concerned that they may not be accepting of their child and young person. Any tips around that? I think some people shared that they had that experience, and that actually they had found that some people were particularly accepting, but I know that that's not true for everybody. Have you had that experience, or do you know how anyone who has, or could you share any tips or thoughts around that in terms of navigating?
From a religious perspective, so one of my friends, their parents were heavily Catholic, I think, and they came out as being transgender, and it caused an absolute uproar in their kind of family circle, to the point, you know, like this person like attempted to like take their own life and stuff. So I know that this area can be quite delicate and quite a sensitive space to sit in for somebody who is gender non-conforming. The only advice that I can give with that is, if they're, obviously I can't, if I don't know like the story or the journey of what, but I'm just going to kind of, if they've got the accessibility to be able to reach out to people on social media, or if there are support groups that they can attend within their area for LGBTQIA plus people,
In the
maybe,
same faith.
yeah, and maybe be able to kind of get them to reach out. I know that
Helen is saying that Naz and Matt Foundation on Facebook are a good place for
there you go,
conversations around
lovely,
religion. And,
amazing.
Yeah.
Send it. Yeah, I'm not like in regards to religion, I'm not kind of well versed in it. However, I have a few people that have had experiences with it.
Yeah.
So if anybody who needs a bit more kind of support with that, I kind of have connections within my community that I can get some more information, or I can kind of link you up with them. So if you do need it, do reach out to me, and I can send you to the right person that can give you that information for sure.
Yeah.
Because I don't kind of want to give my my view on it if I'm not kind of experienced it.
I think the key is to have support for yourself as well, like that you've got people who can kind of hold your brain for you while you're navigating that as well.
Yeah.
My mum's family are all very religious. My mum's elder sister is a clergy. My mum's other sister is an evangelical Christian.
Yeah.
And I know that their kind of like their personal position on things around sexuality and gender is quite old-fashioned.
Yeah.
I have got an email that I will put as a resource when I send out the replay that we sent to everyone in our family, that basically said, this is where we're at, you know. Here's Theo's deed poll. His name is now, please use that name. These are his pronouns. And it, you know, it said, and it did some signposting. So I signposted gendered intelligence and mermaids and Stonewall, and said, you know, please don't refer to him by his birth name. If you've got questions, please come to me. And it said, you know, please be aware it's not appropriate or kind to ask him questions regarding either his genitals, plans for transition, or his sexuality. I can't believe I need to say that, but experience has taught me otherwise. So the email was really clear and basically set some very clear boundaries.
Yeah.
And I was really, and then at the end it was like a kind of like a bit of a Christmas newsletter, you know, like to kind of stuff, you know, it was a shit sandwich basically.
Soften it all. Yeah.
But I attached some pictures of him looking amazing, you know, and I said, you know, don't worry about him. He is happy. We love him. We know that you love him, you know, and if you've got a problem with it, I'd ask you to keep it to yourself, you know. And all the responses we got were overwhelmingly positive. And I was like, I think just setting that boundary from the beginning was a really good step for us. So I will share it and you can use it.
I think as well, it's like if people within a certain group, and I'm not making any judgment about any groups, you know, whatever is what people want to, you know, what their purpose is. However, I think with certain groups as well, it just come down to well, it can come down to their beliefs, but also I think it comes down to them just not being aware of it themselves. I think
lack
sometimes
of understanding and it's fear, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think just sharing a bit of information, being able to you know, like what you've just done there, very, very kind of boom, sharing very light information, giving it a bit of good, giving it a bit of hard hitting in the middle, giving it a bit of good, and then going wicked. You know what I mean? And I think if you sometimes by just doing that, even just sending an email or a letter or giving them something to read, you're saying, you know, this, I think this would be really helpful for you to read. I think this would be really helpful for you to be a part of. However, take it in your own time and let me know.
Kind of a bit of a, I'll just leave this here situation.
Yes, across the table.
Yeah.
With that.
I know it's not always practical for people, but someone helped me with that letter, and because they'd done something similar and it was really good for us as a family. I found it really helpful.
I think it depends on like the circumstances of it and how it's how to approach it. I think in certain ways, like don't get me wrong, like nobody deserves to be like abused or discriminated against or whatever. Like no, take yourself out of that if that's a reoccurrence. But I think it's kind of giving it softly and kind of gently to them, giving them that time and space to either process it, and if it's not processed, then you know, then it's kind of other steps that need to be taken to be able for you to feel safe and for you to be safe as well. So yeah, for sure.
I wanted to say one more thing before we wrap up, and it's a personal request actually, around language that we didn't cover, but it's something that comes up a lot in our house, and it's something that I know a lot of people don't know about, and they miss it, and it can be really tricky. So as someone who has a child who is socialized as female and assigned to female at birth, my son has a womb and ovaries and has a monthly visitor.
Yes.
And he finds it incredibly difficult when conversations around menstruation and periods and all of that are gendered.
Yeah.
He finds it really, really, really difficult, you know, and like, it's something I never considered before I lived with a trans person. But as a request from one mum to many others, I know that we have men on the call too, but the majority of you are here and you may be ovulating and menstruating people. That if you're able to think about shifting your language around that, that would be such a gift to our trans masculine young people and non-binary people.
And non-binary people as well.
You know, like things like when you're saying, you know, like pregnant woman, just swap it out for pregnant person, swap, you know, birthing parent, person with ovaries, person who has their period. It takes a bit of practice, but it's one of the hardest things for him. With you know people saying, oh, women's problems, you know, he immediately feels alienated and it kicks his dysphoria in, and it's really difficult because, you know, as someone who
I feel that's like
you get a lot of dysphoria around that too. So,
and I think as well, not from the wording as well, it's the feelings that you get, because naturally, like we get feelings, like people that are experiencing like menstrual, we get the feelings and the hormones and the aches and the pains and all those sort of things. I think it's again being quite sensitive to that, and the fact of being as well, like what I've touched on before, like when I'm menstruating, I don't wear a binder because I find it's quite painful. Especially because I have quite a larger chest anyway, I find it quite painful. So when I'm not wearing a binder, I can get like dysphoric feelings because I can feel like my chest is more exposed, then I feel like it's heavier because of menstruating and all that sort of stuff. So again, it's just being aware of the sensations that can be coming up, and that they might feel a bit more isolated, like their mental well-being might not be too great. So and I think what helps is the language that we're using. And if we, instead of, you know, like being like, oh, it's because I know that some people, like my mum used to do it all the time, oh, it's women's time, and, you know, and all that sort of stuff. And by
things like conversations about, do you know, one of the things that I thought was so interesting was an event that we went to recently, and there was someone talking about the menopause, and they were like, oh, blah, 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 as women, when we have the menopause. And my son said to me afterwards, I think I'm the only man in that room who has had a menopause. And he has, because he's had hormone treatment. And we always joked that we were racing each other to the menopause.
Yeah.
he's like a 17-year-old boy, and she's going on about hot flushes, and he's going, oh yeah, they're a freaking nightmare. You know, like, but he has had, in essence, a menopause because of the hormone treatment that he's had. But that conversation completely excluded him.
Yeah,
you know?
And it's so important because you just feel very, very excluded. And being part of that conversation, like, you know, I felt very, very excluded from that conversation.
I think non-binary people especially, you know, like there's nothing harder than being in a room with people and like, women like us, and you're like
just like to crawl under the table and just lie there. But I remember one time, this might be quite amusing, I was on the menstrual, and it wasn't great, and I was on the menstrual, and I was having all these like emotions. I was feeling proper groggy, and, you know, I was wearing this big massive jumper, and I walked into Tesco's, and I was like, I need some crisp, I need some fucking chocolate, and I was like walking into Tesco, and I was like, oh, I need to, you know, go and get some products. So I'm walking around the thing here, and it really, excuse my language, really pissed me off, because the the aisles are so gendered. So this is about a year ago. I literally picked up loads of like sanitary products, and I like grabbed the box off the shelf and like curled it up in my arms, walked down to where there was like clothing and like men's clothing, and I went and just put these sanitary products and just popped them right in the middle of this aisle. And I was like, just because that we're having a menstrual doesn't make us all women, and it doesn't have to be pink and flowery.
You know,
And
I didn't even...
this sales assistant was like, are you okay? I was like, no, and all I just wanted some fucking chocolate. Just like I took myself out at Tesco, but it really frustrated me, because I was just like, you know, why does it have to be like that? And it is something that needs to be kind of broken. And again, it's the way that we speak about it, it's the way that we present it within the society.
I was astounded.
Yeah.
I've never even clocked it at like how like the little images on sanitary towels, like they like lots of sanitary towels have like, you know, the like the female sign, you know, the circle with the cross underneath it.
Is it like a pink sign?
No, you know, like it's like this. Hang on.
We're all going to be going getting our sanitary products now, aren't we? Like
that.
Oh yeah.
Rather than the other one, which is male, that looks like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but loads and loads and loads of sanitary products have that sign on them, and then like have flowers and hearts and shit like that. And Theo was like, I want to launch a brand of eco-friendly sanitary products that have dinosaurs on the packaging.
Yeah,
I was like, I will buy
them. I will buy them. I'll just buy the full stock. You know, yeah. But it is its language, and I think it's just adapting our language and just being very neutral in how we're saying it instead of it being gendered.
And people roller skating in white shorts. Come on. I do not feel represented by those adverts. Right. Oh. I can see there's still some bits. Teresa, message me. I'm happy to have that conversation that you just asked about hormones and stuff. I think you probably can find me on Facebook, but if not, I will just quickly send you a private message with my email address. You can reach out to me, but I'm happy to have that conversation away from here. I will email you. So thanks everyone for coming this evening. I will get an email out with the replay and with Alex's slides over the weekend is my intention, but for anyone who's ever been on one of my webinars before, you'll know that that will mean mid-December. So
next year.
the joy of ADHD and demand avoidance, but I will endeavour to
and I'll forget to send you the slides, so yeah. You just
between us and our ADHD we'll get it to you at some point.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us all, everyone. Thanks for giving us your time tonight, and
thank you.
Are so grateful to for your effort, Alex, and for coming here and giving us your labor. And I think you're just most incredible, beautiful soul.
Thank you very much.
And I'm very glad that you're in my life.
I know. I feel exactly the same.
Okay, right. Good night, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Good night, all.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.